to go ahead and point out. You know when they say history repeats itself? Because it do. It do. So, I told you I'm taking my history class and I was going to, give my thoughts on some of the things that I was learning. Well, today, one of my lessons for my telepath happens to be on stagflation. Which, if you don't know what stagflation is pretty much what we have going on right now. Which, again, also happened in 1974. Let me go ahead and give y'all the definition of what it is. So, boom, boom. This is when both inflation and unemployment pass the 6%, what they say, threshold. I believe, aren't we at like 7 or something and steadily going up? Okay. Now, one thing I will say from history is that you can definitely learn from history. So, even they say it. Pretty much, if you got money at this time to invest, you'll do well. If you ain't got shit, and a lot of us lost shit, you will not. And it's a setup. Listen, this was just going on in the 1970s. Just happening. How are we again repeating it and it hasn't even been a whole 100 years? Has it been 100 years since the 1970s? I'm trying to figure it out. What's this, 80s, 90s? No, I think it's only been about half a century. Maybe a little bit over half a century. But it's just like, how are we falling in these same pitfalls? How are we not able to listen? I know we can't say anything against the government and nothing like that, so this is just strictly to be informational. But don't this all seem a little too close to what we just went through in the 70s? As I'm sitting up here reading about it, listen, they're talking about the causes of the stagflation from back then. So it said by 1971, the balance trade was turning against the U.S. So we were importing more than we were exporting. And because we removed the gold, because remember before we were backed by the gold standard, the dollar bill used to be backed by gold. It's not backed by gold anymore. So that shit pretty much worthless. It's pieces of paper just floating around and we like, oh, you take this piece of paper, I take this one. I be telling y'all, energy is the real currency. Because the dollar ain't worth too much, more than what's printed on there. Get into it. And then, so that immediately devalued America's money. Now, this is during the time and reign of President Nixon. And his goal was to increase exports. So he felt that if he put a 10% tax on what we were importing into the country and charging people another 10%, then we could do that. Now, I just want to let y'all know, within this day and age, because technically this was a global thing, we can't charge nobody no extra money. Ain't nobody got no extra money. Everybody been, quote unquote, everybody been spending their extra money on COVID. Yeah, didn't we just I just read somewhere that we just purchased another 600,000 COVID shots. Okay, let's just go ahead and continue to read through some of this information. And again, this caused economic hardship. So once we removed that and our dollar was worth less, there was a lot of economic hardship placed on the people, as again what we're going through now. This is when they tried to extend daylight saving times. They had rules about driving. And now I see why the speed limit out here is 55. Because, in Cali, I think our speed limit is 75. We be speeding all day. But the federal speed limit at that time was about 55 miles per hour because they were trying to get you to save. They had early cutoffs. They didn't want you to do no pageants, no Christmas lights. Some states would even ask you, don't even hang up your lights. Don't even hang up your lights. That's how bad it got. Now listen. It says that it was seeming to work in 1971 when he was doing this, and it even helped his re-election because at first it looked like with us charging the extra 10% we was getting in more, right? But in 1972, however, we found that the policies only helped to fuel inflation for longer periods of time. What are we facing right now? Inflation for higher periods of time. And why is this important? Because inflation and unemployment feed each other. So if we decrease unemployment, we rise inflation. But if we don't increase, get unemployment under control, then inflation goes down, but unemployment goes up. I'm just, I be juggling it back and forth too, don't worry. I'm hoping to make it make sense for you because I'm trying to make it make sense for me. So let's continue a little bit more. So another reason, there was an increase in energy prices Which again, every time there's something go wrong in the government on their end, we end up having to pay more money for it, right? But again, they're already telling you, you fucked, especially if you don't have the money to invest, because at this point in time, what you gonna do? yeah. And then this is supposed to be his reaction. Although he tried, this is what Nixon, although his administration tried many different approaches to ease the sudden shock of high oil prices, they tried to like I said, they tried establishing the speed limit, rationing gas prices on even and odd days based off the numbers on your license plate. So you can only get gas based off the last number of your license plate, and on that day if it's even days, alright? So if your license plate end with a 4, you can go ahead and get gas today. But if it end with a 5, you better not go to the gas station today. You might go to jail. Over gas! Something that you need to get back and forth to work, right? Listen. Not even just that, but they had you lowering your thermostat in government and public buildings. They extended, I told you about that, extended daylight saving time, requesting a professional and college outdoor sporting events not be played at night. That way they can save some money on them light bills, and they can go ahead and cut the city off and have it dark as heck without having to worry about people needing to get home from these games or sporting events, right? None of it worked. I just want to let you know that none of it worked. So he ended up letting go. Somebody named, one of our presidents, Mr. Ford, was faced with economic problems. He was not able to handle the situation firmly because, again, unemployment and inflation were still on the rise again in 1974. They shot back up, right? Partly because of the economy and the pardoning of Nixon. So Ford lost. I feel like he was only there for that. They only let him in there, pardon Nixon, and be on about his way, because he really ain't, it's somebody saying he really didn't do nothing else while he was in office. Then we get to Mr. Carter. And his administration faced the same thing. Now, the reason I wanted to, was more interested in this, especially after reading it, is because if we can learn what the 1% did during this first period of stagnation, or stagflation, whatever they want to call it, stagflation. If we can learn what they did, imagine how we can position ourselves this time to really come out on top and really be able to use this information to help ourselves. Let us not continue to spend more money without equity. Begin to spend money on things that you own. Now, I'm not talking about just a table in your house. I'm not talking about just the material aspect of things. I mean land. In a way, I guess I am talking about the material aspects. The land. Getting you some houses. A couple of them. Really being able to invest on a solid level in yourself and in the generations to come after you. Stop leaving your kids with debt. This is, again, this is 2022, and we're dealing with the same problems from 1970s. History, life is a whole cycle, and we're in a process of repeating one of our past cycles and patterns. So how can we at this point in time make sure that we don't end up where our ancestors did back in the 1970s and 80s? We seen how that generation turned out. I'm talking to my 80s and 90s babies. We seen how they turned out. Early 2000 babies. Okay? Make different choices. Let's continue with this information. Again, I'm still reading on it, so we gonna read on it. So again, Carter still faced, in 1976, still faced the same problems of stagflation. So that means it's been going on for like 6 years now. How long we been in with COVID? They were dealing with this for 6 years. This is not a quick fix. Even history says that itself. This is a problem that drags on for years. How long have we been in COVID? Since about 2019, 2020? We've only been in for 2-3 years. That means at most, we didn't even know if that's where they ended. Oh shit, it say in 1980 inflation was 13%. Oh, listen, that means that they dealt with inflation for close to 10 years. And where did they start again? When it first started, and they said in 1970 it passed. So that means they were already dealing with inflation even before 1970. Just in 1970, it went past 6%. Inflation is not a new problem for the U.S. Not a new one. Let's continue. Like I said, I just want us to be able to use this information to grow and to learn and to see how we can make different choices and be better and learn from the history. Learn. Okay. Let's see. So what they tried to do then when he got into office is he tried to hold down the spending of the federal government, which is something that they do now, and the Federal Reserve are supposed to stop the money printing. But wait a minute, isn't it tax season? So are they telling you they can't pay you when they have to stop printing the money? We ain't not gonna get into all that and all the heavy details, even though they're currently burning the money right now that need to be still circulating and going back out into the community. But we're not gonna talk about that, right? We're gonna stick to this history lesson. One of the major factors that prevented Carter's administration for control of the economy was the Iranian hostage crisis. So we do know that this was something, and even those numbers, there's an interview they have on here that was done on November 11th, I believe that was 1979. And this is when the Iranians had the U.S. embassy in their country, and I think they had, while the U.S. went from 1,000 employees to 60, I believe it was something about trying to keep down, whatever it was. They went from 1,000 and shrunk it down to 60. These 60 people were stormed by about 700 and something like that students. And at first 15, and the way that the girl describes it, this is what you call a peaceful protest, okay? They took over the whole building, nobody got hurt, they didn't come with no guns or nothing, they only had sticks, everybody was real calm, everything went real calm, real smooth, and they pretty much held them for 444 days. They held them for over a year. It's 356 days. These people were held for over a year. The U.S. could not get them back. The only reason that they let them go was because a new president was elected into office. That was it. Now let's go ahead and finish learning about what we learned about on this lesson. I just want to let you know that's a part of the Iranian hostage crisis. That was what that was talking about. So again, that crisis drove up oil prices. Oh yeah, because we had stuck our nose over there in their business. They was like, oh, so because you won't let go of who's supposed to be our leader, Mr. Saha, because we were trying to give him some treatment for his cancer and stuff, but the country felt like we were trying to work against them because they won't let niggas head. Okay? And they went on ahead and raised up our oil prices by like 70%. And the government then in turn put stricter pressures on us because of a decision that they made to help somebody, and it fucked them off, so they had to fuck us off. Just so y'all know, in that situation. Again, this is not to be terroristic. This is only to be informational. I'm just reading what happened in history. Y'all can read it too. Okay, so again, that crisis, what I just described, it drove up oil prices. It contributed to stagflation and caused the Americans to look to Asia for cheaper, more fuel-efficient automobiles. Hence, the vehicles we got, such as Tesla now. Alright. We're going to keep reading. We're going to keep reading. It's not too much left. It's not too much left. I believe it's actually like the last little portion. We're going to go ahead and just get it. But, so this is when we get to the Reagan administration, about 1980s. And he made promises through Reaganomics, which I have to even learn some more about that to even understand what Reaganomics is. This is why I'm learning history, because I don't know it all. Now I know some stuff, but I'll never claim to know it all. Keep talking with your girl. We gonna keep going over these classes and over these history lessons to see what we can do, make it do what it do, so we can learn from history, so we can move forward into a new era that don't have to be repeated. And if it do repeat, we on the opposite side of history. We standing with the 1%ers. Okay? We try to become 1%ers. Okay? But the right way. Not fucking people over. Y'all enjoy y'all day.